The desperate run-up to 1943 saw a shadow war of scientific innovation, with breakthroughs in electromagnetic manipulation and even fleeting successes in achieving partial invisibility as early as the 1930s. These clandestine efforts, born of necessity, laid a perilous groundwork. The world was a furnace. The U.S. Navy bled. German U-boats, the silent hunters of the deep, relentlessly claimed vessel after vessel. Admiral Lee, his office walls adorned with maps bristling with red pins marking lost ships, stared at a framed photograph of his nephew, young, smiling, lost with the USS Cygnus. He slammed a fist on his mahogany desk.
"We need a miracle, gentlemen."
He had growled to his top brass, his voice raspy with fatigue and grief.
"Something to make our ships invisible to their damned magnetic mines and U-boat wolf packs."
An insidious new threat compounded this maritime nightmare. Naval mines attuned to a ship's steel heart. From the highest echelons of military command, a desperate top-secret directive was issued. Project Rainbow. The objective was audacious. Top secret. Discussions held in classified locations indicated potential agreements concerning forbidden technology, with the objective of securing strategic advantage and operational success. The call went out for minds capable of wrestling with the universe's fundamental forces. Nikola Tesla, whose thoughts seemed to crackle with the raw energy of lightning, was among the first. Tasked with weaving an electromagnetic bottle to deflect radar, Tesla, it is said, saw deeper.
"'Tis not a switch you may simply flip, Admiral Lee,"
he reportedly warned, his diction precise, almost archaic.
"The energies required, the potential consequences for any living soul caught within such a maelstrom are grave."
He understood the terrible energies they sought to command and argued for caution, for time. But the relentless drumbeat of war drowned his pleas. Some say Tesla, foreseeing catastrophe, actively impeded the project's reckless pace. Whether he resigned or was forcibly dismissed, his guiding hand was ultimately removed. Into this void stepped Dr. John von Neumann, a mathematician of formidable power, his eyes burning with an almost zealous intensity.
"The theories are sound, gentlemen."
Von Neumann assured the anxious military liaisons, his words clipped and confident.
"We will deliver. Proceed."
With him, and the lingering contributions of Albert Einstein, the project lurched forward from its academic cradles at the University of Chicago and Princeton's Institute for Advanced Study, where figures like Dr. John Hutchinson, Dr. Kurtenhauer, and even Tesla himself had explored relativity and invisibility. An unmanned test, a smaller vessel tethered in the Brooklyn shipyard in 1940, reportedly vanished, an ominous rehearsal for the horrors to come. The Navy chose T. Townsend Brown, a scientist known for manifesting theoretical physics, to spearhead key aspects of the practical application. The USS Eldridge, DE-173, a new destroyer escort, became the chosen vessel for this perilous experiment. On the morning of the main test, the air above the Philadelphia Naval Yard held the usual tang of salt and diesel. Sailors went about their routines, the clang of tools on steel, the distant call of a bosun's pipe, the smell of coffee brewing in the mess. A few off-duty men were playing cards on the fantail of a nearby supply ship, their laughter carrying on the breeze. Engineers retrofitted her steel decks, creating a spiderweb of heavy cables and strange apparatus, dominated by Tesla's powerful coils, all designed to generate an unprecedented electromagnetic field. The very air around her thrummed, a taut wire of aberrant energy. Under von Neumann's direction, the theory evolved. A unified field theory, von Neumann would explain, his chalk flying across a blackboard.
"By manipulating intense, overlapping fields, think of them like interacting soap bubbles. To achieve dimensional phase shifting, the ship will not merely be hidden. It will exist outside conventional spacetime."
Among physicists, quiet debates continued.
"The resonance calculations are unstable, John."
A junior physicist, Dr. Franklin Reno, dared to mutter, nervously adjusting his spectacles, his face pale.
"The entanglement factors are unpredictable."
And John, if the dimensional phase collapses catastrophically, the vacuum snapback, our models predict a rebound echo within approximately 3 minutes, potentially hundreds of miles away.
"We cannot control where that displaced energy will manifest."
Von Neumann's dismissive glare cut him short.
"Anomalies are to be expected, Reno. We are pushing boundaries, not baking cakes."
"Contingencies are noted."
They were meddling with energies that might not merely bend light, but tear the fabric of space-time. The generator's hum began a rising guttural thrum, a vibration felt in teeth and bone, a metallic tang in the air, growing with each passing second. The first trial with a full crew on July 22, 1943, was an ominous success and a brutal warning. The Eldridge achieved invisibility to radar, eye, and camera.
My God, it worked.
Technician Miller breathed, his voice a mixture of awe and terror. But the men within that shimmering, ozone-laced field emerged disoriented, nauseated, babbling of impossible colors and sounds without earthly origin. Screams had resounded from within the shimmering veil, cut short. Decades later, a man named Al Bielek would claim that a vivid dream in 1977 unlocked memories of a past life. He was Edward Cameron, a Navy engineer aboard the USS Eldridge in 1943. In these recovered memories, he and his brother Duncan, also an engineer, were shielded within a control room during that first trial. Duncan Cameron, clutching the control panel, felt the steel beneath his feet ripple like water, a nauseating lurch in his stomach. Strange lights pulsed behind his eyelids. The air grew thick, heavy, pressing in.
Something is wrong, Ed. Terribly wrong.
Duncan Cameron had yelled, his voice cracking, the words tasting like ash in his mouth, a tremor before the earthquake. Then came that grim October day in 1943 at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. The exact date, be it August 12th or October 28th, deliberately obscured. As witnessed by men like Carl Allen, later Carlos Allende, aboard the nearby SS Andrew Furuseth, the Eldridge's colossal generators spooled to their peak. Their hum escalated, a bone-jarring shriek. It resonated deep in the chest, teeth ached, vision blurred. Allen and his crewmates, having heard only faint talk, saw the Eldridge's crew, faces pale with apprehension, ordered below by a grim-faced Lieutenant Harrison.
May God be with you, lads.
Lieutenant Harrison was heard to say, his voice barely audible over the rising din. An infamous greenish-yellow plume began to coalesce around the destroyer. Not weather, an EM-induced shroud, oily, acrid. The air tasted of copper and bitter almonds, a stench of burnt wiring, something ancient, decayed. A smell that clawed at the throat. It clung to the ship, expanding rapidly, tendrils of it coiling like living things. Allen recounted reaching for it, his hand repelled by an invisible, crackling barrier that sent jolts of pain up his arm.
What in tarnation is that?
Sailor Perkins on the Furuseth exclaimed. A blinding flash of light, a deafening crack, the sky splitting. The Eldridge vanished from Philadelphia. According to Al Bielek's recalled experiences as Edward Cameron, and later confirmed by frantic coded reports from distant listening posts, the ship then reappeared briefly, impossibly, in Norfolk, Virginia, a terrifying echo exactly 3 minutes later, fulfilling Dr. Reno's dire prediction of a vacuum snapback, somehow arriving before it had even dematerialized from its origin point. When it finally returned to Philadelphia, abomination awaited. The green, sulfurous haze remained, pulsing now with an inner, sickening light. Compasses spun wildly, needles shattered, clocks stuttered, hands jerking, then dead. A profound, otherworldly cold permeated the steel of nearby ships, frost forming on railings. After several agonizing minutes, another flash, another thunderous report that shook the Furuseth to its keel, and the Eldridge reappeared, its silhouette flickering, unstable.
Get those launches in the water, now!
Barked Commander Blackwood from the pier, his voice tight with controlled panic. Allen saw technicians and Navy personnel, their faces grim, launching towards the destroyer. Now a silent, brooding specter, the green effluvium slowly, reluctantly, receding from its scarred hull. Fragmented reports, uttered in terror, spoke of more than vanishing. The boundary of reality stretched taut and tore with a sound like cosmic fabric ripping, an inner skull vibration joined by a high-pitched keening that drove men to their knees, hands clasped over their ears. The air itself seemed to scream, not with sound, but with an unbearable pressure. A silent shriek that promised a glimpse of skies painted in colors that would shatter the mind, and a fleeting, nauseating sensation of falling through infinite, cold emptiness.
The Matrix is failing! Containment breach! We are seeing decoherence cascade!
Dr. Reno screamed into his headset, his glasses askew, his eyes wide with dawning horror as he stared at his instruments.
The field is tearing!
Dr. Albright shrieked from an observation post before the line went dead. Was it a scalar shockwave from the intense fields? A resonance tuned to another plane? A sustained torsion effect, twisting space-time. The vapor became a gateway, a raw, bleeding wound in the world, the air within it shimmering with impossible geometries, exuding a palpable wrongness, a stench of realities utterly alien. And through that shimmering, nauseous tear, things began to emerge, drawn by the chaotic energy, hungry for a foothold in a new, vulnerable reality. First, figures of bleached bone pallor, their forms emaciated, scuttled low across the deck with a horrifying, jerky fluidity, limbs bending at impossible angles. A faint, dry clicking of talons on steel sent faint shivers through the deck plates, punctuated by a subtle, high-pitched chittering that scraped just at the edge of human hearing, raising the hairs on the back of the neck. They disappeared into vents and shadows, radiating a creeping, wordless dread. One sailor, paralyzed by fear, watched as a bulkhead near him seemed to flow open, one of the pale figures emerging from the solid steel before vanishing into a ventilation shaft, its passage leaving a trail of icy condensation. An abruptly silenced yelp, a choked gurgle from a dark companionway, their only markers. Other stranger shapes flitted at the edge of vision, too quick to grasp, leaving behind only a sense of profound wrongness and the faint, cloying scent of decay. Then, as the dimensional wound gaped wider, its edges ragged with impossible energies, a hulking bipedal nightmare erupted onto the decks with a crash of tortured metal. Its silhouette, a monstrous fusion of man and beast, stood well over 7 feet tall, fur thick, dark, and matted. Its muzzle, filled with teeth too long and sharp for any terrestrial predator, dripped a ropey, dark saliva that sizzled faintly on the deck, eating into the paint. Its eyes, deep set, burned with a feral red sentience. Its guttural roars were a physical assault, a sound of rending metal and splintering wood. But beneath the overt savagery, its growl contained deep, resonant harmonics that seemed to bypass the ears and vibrate directly in the sternum, inducing a primal, paralyzing fear. These were punctuated by screams, horrifyingly human as it tore through the terrified crew.
"Fire, for God's sake, fire!"
Lieutenant Anders screamed, his pistol already empty. Sailors with sidearms fired wildly. Bullets vanished. They struck, the creature would not go down. One man charged with a fire axe, swatted aside like an insect, his body crumpled. High above, silhouetted against an eerie, electrified green sky pulsing with the failing experiment, darker shapes took to the air, gaunt and shadowed. Their vast, leathery wings beat with an unnatural, silent cadence, like specters from a forgotten predatory age, their unseen faces presumably looking down upon the chaos with cold, alien intelligence. The air grew thick with their musky, reptilian scent. One swooped low, its talons tearing through a radio antenna as if it were paper, its passage creating a momentary vortex that sent loose gear flying. The experiment was an unmitigated disaster. The Eldridge, caught in this tempest, vanished from Philadelphia, reappearing briefly, terrifyingly, in Norfolk, Virginia, before being wrenched back.
"Cut the power! Cut it now, damn you!"
Von Neumann was reportedly heard bellowing into a microphone, his usual composure shattered, his face a mask of disbelief and fury. As alarms blared and the very structure of the control room groaned, Dr. Reno, seeing the main generators on the verge of a catastrophic overload, made a last, desperate lunge. His final act was to yank a master breaker, a shower of sparks erupting around him. Reno vanished in the electric glare, his silhouette etched in afterimage on every retina. This act likely saved the generators from wiping half the shipyard off the map, even as it sealed his own fate. When the order was finally relayed and the remaining generators died with an agonizing groan, an eerie, profound silence descended upon the Eldridge, broken only by the drip of water and the distant, fading howl from the dying rift. It pulsed, a ragged, luminous wound, throbbing like a dying heart. The sounds from within it shifting from shrieks to something that sounded disturbingly like laughter. Not all that had come through were reclaimed nor destroyed in the electromagnetic collapse. The men aboard suffered fates defying description. As technicians, armed and steel-jawed, boarded the silent, powerless vessel by torchlight, the true horror unfolded.
Sweet Mother of God.
Chief Petty Officer Riley whispered, his light shaking. The deck was slick with something. Some crew members were unconscious, others frozen mid-action like grotesque statues, their faces contorted in silent screams. Those responsive cried in pain or mumbled incoherently, words jumbled, eyes wide with an incomprehensible terror. Deeper within, A sailor was found with his arm fused into a steel bulkhead, flesh and bone integrated with cold metal, the air thick with the smell of cooked meat and superheated steel. Nearby, one of the hulking, bestial intruders lay contorted, its monstrous form partially melded into a twisted steel support beam, coarse fur and alien bone nightmarishly intertwined with the ship's structure, a testament to the indiscriminate nature of the forces unleashed. Another human crew member had his lower half sunk into the deck, his hands clawing at the unyielding metal. Others burned from within, leaving only charred outlines that smoked faintly. Some were found turned inside out, their dog tags embedded in the gruesome remains. Men flickered in and out of solidity, their forms unstable, their minds shattered. According to Bielik's account as Cameron, amidst this chaos, seeing the unspeakable fates of their crewmates, men fused into the hull, others lost to madness or radiation, he and Duncan made a desperate choice. They tried to escape by jumping overboard, only to fall not into the cold waters of the Delaware River, but through a swirling green vortex of light that seemed to swallow them whole. Survivors like them were debriefed into oblivion, their experiences erased or dismissed. Many sustained lasting side effects, sudden madness, uncontrollable rage, then normalcy, complete mental breakdowns. Some experienced what became known as deep freezes, immobilizing on the spot, sometimes fading from existence. One sailor reportedly walked through a solid brick wall, never seen again, leaving only a shimmering distortion in the air for a moment. 2 Eldridge sailors in a bar fight vanished mid-punch, leaving their opponents flailing at empty space. A crewman in a deep freeze inexplicably burst into flames, his remains burning for 18 days with an unnatural cold fire. Allen believed it a physical side effect of the field, knocking them out of sync with reality. A simple touch could sometimes anchor the sufferer, but not always. Official silence was immediate, absolute. The truth, a casualty. What began as a desperate wartime gamble for invisible ships soon birthed invisible and all too tangible nightmares that stalk the modern age. The human cost was unimaginable, but another truth dawned with the gray, indifferent light of morning. Not everything that crossed over was banished. A towering, shadowed predator, its fur matted with something dark and viscous, had shrugged off hastily fired rounds from dockside Marines. One guard swore he saw it clear the 12-foot shipyard fence in a single impossible leap before vanishing towards the sleeping city of Philadelphia. Its guttural snarls a fading promise of carnage in the pre-dawn quiet. Gaunt, silent figures, leaving faint, frigid patches on the ground where they paused, were glimpsed disappearing into the labyrinthine underbelly of the docks, their aberrant, multi-jointed movements allowing them to slip into storm drains and crawl spaces no human could access. The winged silhouettes, after circling once more as if imprinting the location on some alien map, had melted into the oppressive, indifferent night sky, leaving only a residual tang of ozone and scorched reptile hide hanging heavy in the air. They had escaped. In the decades since, unsettling stories have continued to surface. Near Philadelphia in Montgomery County lurks the Bryn Athyn beast, a 7-foot bipedal dogman with glowing orange eyes. Reported since the 1990s, it is often solitary and aggressive, its howls carrying for miles on the night wind. Further out in Bucks County, a couple reported 2 encounters with such a creature, once watching them from the roadside with unnerving stillness, then later pacing their car at 50 miles per hour, its massive form a terrifying blur. In 2013, Philadelphia's Pennypack Park itself saw repeated calls about a wolf-dog hybrid with an upright posture and predatory lope, an official capture effort yielding nothing but more fear. South near Norfolk, a retired Danville police officer recounted an encounter with a jet-black 7-foot upright canine with a lion-like mane that killed a dog, an incident that ended his career. His ears, he claimed, still rang with a subsonic growl he could never quite forget. The pale, scuttling things from the Eldridge find their counterparts in modern accounts. One unnerving online testimony described a skinny, featureless creature peering into a tent at night, more alien than human, its silence more terrifying than any sound. Even the winged horrors persist, with sporadic reports of Mothman-like creatures sighted over Philadelphia, particularly near old naval installations, their appearances often heralding a sense of inexplicable dread and forgotten memories bubbling to the surface. Unexplained disappearances, sudden localized cold spots, the scent of ozone and decay, these are the lingering signatures. And just this year, 2025, a fragmented, heavily redacted report surfaced from a Department of Defense subcontractor detailing corrupted body cam footage from a Philadelphia patrol near the long-abandoned naval yards. The last clear audio captured an officer yelling,
"It is not a dog. It is not."
before the recording dissolved into static and screams, then a single wet thud. Glitched frames from that same incident briefly appeared on a dark web cryptid forum, showing something impossibly tall and shadowed, before disappearing under a takedown request marked NAVC. The threat, it seems, is not only present but perhaps accelerating. Project Philadelphia, in its reckless ambition, tore open portals to realms unknown, unleashing forces that defy comprehension. The reverberations of that day's terror still ripple through time, a dark undercurrent to the mundane world. What truly transpired aboard the USS Eldridge remains a fiercely guarded secret. Alfred Bielek, whose later claims as Edward Cameron detailed such specific and bizarre horrors, offered testimony so haunting it cemented the incident in lore, suggesting a swift military cover-up, crew replaced, logs altered. If those scientists, driven by war's exigencies, did tear a hole into reality's best left undisturbed, and if horrors slipped their leash, the Philadelphia experiment was not just a failed test, it was an act of horrific accidental seeding. Dr. Stephen Greer's theories offer a sobering lens. Such gateways are not stable portals, but ephemeral bubbles, formed when focused human consciousness, a calm resonant tuning, is amplified by a calibrated electromagnetic surge. A gentle tuning, a gentle pulse might invite benign visitation, but the Eldridge's experiment with its weaponized EM bursts was a violent, coercive blast. It forced a maelstrom, wrenching beings through out of phase, leading to the nightmarish transmutations recounted in the darkest tales of the Eldridge. Men fused with steel, a reckless gamble with existence itself, a stark contrast to any controlled meditative approach. The saga of the USS Eldridge and Project Rainbow stands as a testament to wartime desperation. In war, the quest for an ultimate weapon can shatter more than enemy lines. It can fracture reality. This account of invisible ships, men consumed, and entities unleashed is a stark reminder of boundaries breached and the harrowing cost of forbidden knowledge. Such narratives, veiled in official denial yet enduring, compel us to question the limits of science and secrecy. If you hold any fragment of this forbidden truth, contact deadnetstudios@gmail.com. Until then, secure the watch and pray the night holds.
The world's on fire. U-boats stalking, the tension runs higher. Navy's bleeding, losses untold. Need a miracle, brave and bold. Project Rainbow, a whispered command to shield a steel heart from the enemy's hand. Tesla, he warned them, this power's too deep for souls in the maelstrom, secrets to keep. Eldridge is humming, a sickly green sheen. Philadelphia experiment, a nightmare machine, tearing a hole in the fabric of time, unleashing the horrors of cosmic crime. Vanished in thunder, a blinding white crack. Pray to your God, there's no turning back. Von Neumann leading with confidence and stride. Unified field theory, nowhere to hide. Coils are glowing, the generators whine. Reno predicted the terrible sign. A snapback in Norfolk, an impossible feat. Then back to the shipyard, can't be beat. July was a warning, the crew came out strange. Babbling of colors, a terrible change. Eldridge is humming, a sickly green sheen. Philadelphia experiment, a nightmare machine, tearing a hole in the fabric of time, unleashing the horrors of cosmic crime. Vanished in thunder, a blinding white crack. Pray to your God, there's no turning back. The rift pulsed open, a wound in the sky. Pale figure scuttled with no place to die. A dogman was roaring, 7 feet tall. Winged shadows circled, observing the fall. Men fused with metal, a terrible art. Some burned from within, torn right apart. Reno A final break.